Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking closely at a piece of modern writing that, well, it acts almost like a coded political statement rather than just a poem. We're exploring Weerathunga W. Nimal's really powerful work, Ballad of the Easter, 2019. Now, for anyone unfamiliar, this poem tackles just the unimaginable horror of the Sri Lankan Easter Sunday bombings. But Nimal's goal here is kind of twofold. It's partly an eternal lament for the victims, absolutely, but maybe more urgently, it's a fierce, systemic critique of the political elite. He basically accuses them of active negligence, a cover-up, and the resulting failure of justice. So this deep dive, what we want to do is show you how he actually managed that critique by, interestingly, using a very simple traditional poetic form. Okay, let's unpack this dense narrative.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how Nimal chose his form, his medium. The tragedy itself, it shook a nation's soul and exposed the frailty of truth under power, as the source materials put it. So for the poem to really carry the weight of that trauma, it couldn't just be, temporary. It had to be built to last. And the ballad form, it helps ensure this difficult truth kind of bypasses the official histories, the ones designed maybe to forget.
That's a perfect place to start. The choice of the traditional ballad form. Why not free verse or some contemporary style? Why structure a response to a 21st century, terror attack in these four-line quatrains with this steady, almost musical rhythm?
Well, it feels entirely like a political and historical calculation. By using that traditional ballad structure, the quatrains, the rhythmic flow, and especially the heavy use of repetition, the refrains, Nimal gives it the weight and music of an eternal lament. He's deliberately rooting this event in the realm of, enduring folklore, making it fundamentally resistant to being erased.
So it's meant to be remembered, recited, passed down. The materials we looked at draw clear parallels, don't they?
Yeah.
Comparing its function to big political elegies like Yeats' Easter 1916 or Tennyson's The Charge of the Light Brigade.
Exactly. And those comparisons are really instructive.
Yeah.
In both of those classics, the poems document a tragedy. One's about a sacrifice that maybe wasn't necessary. The other, a huge political blunder sort of dressed up as heroism.
Right.
Nimal puts his work right in that same tradition. He's turning this moment of state failure into an indelible, a permanent memory. And he forces the reader, really, to acknowledge the message in its subtitle, A Ballad of Truths Buried in Silence.
So the ballad form, which we often associate with, simpler stories or folk history, it becomes this perfect kind of Trojan horse. It lets him smuggle these highly specific, pretty dangerous political accusations into a form that culture will just naturally preserve.
Precisely. It's like an act of cultural preservation against the official political silence.
Yeah.
That rhythmic simplicity gives it a staying power that, say, a formal judicial report, which can be sealed or just dissolved, it simply can't have.
Yeah.
The truth gets carried by the cadence,
Okay, let's shift into the content itself then, because Nimal isn't just dealing in abstract grief here. He immediately starts documenting a pattern of deliberate suppression.
Yeah, the poem jumps straight into the aftermath, and Nimal alleges it was marked by violence against the investigation itself. That opening quatrain is chilling, isn't it? Just how brief it is, referring to the initial victims, or maybe investigators. 2 officers fell, their bright swords gone, their blood on stone, their story none.
Wow.
The implication is immediate. Any attempt at finding the truth was fatally compromised right from the start.
And the poem quickly points a finger at the source of the official deflection. It details how a convenient falsehood was set up, seemingly to shield the powerful.
And this is where we see maybe the complicity of the supposedly neutral, educated class. Nimal writes, a scholar whispered low and sly, leopards did it let the truth lie.
Huh? Leopards did it.
That phrasing is incredibly powerful, right? It suggests the lie wasn't just street gossip. It was crafted, disseminated by an intellectual figure, a scholar, providing this convenient, almost animalistic, dismissive scapegoat, leopards, for what was a human political failure.
That contrast, the complexity of the alleged cover-up versus the simplicity of a lie, it's arresting. But Nimal doesn't just stop at intellectual denial. He points to specific, visceral, physical evidence that was supposedly hidden or destroyed.
He gives these forensic markers, making the truth feel tangible. We see the mention of physical proof being suppressed, like the armour lay in secret sleep beneath a culvert, cold and deep.
Right, specific items.
And then connecting the tragedy back to the victims we read of. A schoolboy's bag with sorrow tied held the proof the rulers denied.
These aren't vague ideas. Armor, a schoolboy's bag, these are specific objects. They function as concrete evidence of concealment, forcing you, the reader, to face the reality that the cover-up was physical, not just, words.
And the indictment then widens, doesn't it? To include all the institutional mechanisms. The press was hushed, the trail went dead, suggesting the communication channels were also shut down. But maybe the most damning detail in this section, at least in Nimal's narrative, involves the active negligence of those who were meant to enforce the law.
That simple, terrifying couplet about just willfully turning away.
It connects directly to that moment of choosing silence over action. A lorry rolled with death inside, yet the person in authority, the lawman, smiled and let it ride.
The lawman smiled.
That moment, the smiling lawman, it just encapsulates the shift from maybe bureaucratic incompetence to something like active malice, or at least indifference. It signifies a betrayal right at the moment of highest crisis, suggesting the danger was known and just permitted to pass.
So the poem then moves up the chain.
Right.
It elevates the accusation from street-level negligence to high-level systemic political foreknowledge. It's not just about what they missed, but potentially what they knew.
Exactly. The poem suggests the warnings were pretty widespread. Neighbors trembled, warned in vain. Their local knowledge, their fears, were ignored by a governing structure that, well, clearly failed to connect the dots.
But the most shocking accusation, the one that really seals the moral indictment against the ruling class in the poem, involves elite self-preservation. It talks about familial warnings being passed among the powerful.
Yeah, that intimate detail is just chilling. Ministers' fathers, apparently operating on privileged intelligence, softly spoke, "Stay home, my son, the church is broke."
Wow.
Nimal uses that little anecdote, that micro-anecdote of betrayal, to contrast the public silence and all the rhetoric about safety with the private, self-serving actions of those who might have known what was coming. It paints a portrait of a class shielding itself while the public suffered.
And Nimal makes absolutely certain that the ruling power at the time of the attacks is singled out, accused not just of ignorance, but of actual evasion.
The accusation against the first king, so the head of state at the time, is explicit. The king had known, yet fled away. He did not watch the fire that day. This is a Nimal really cementing this idea of evasion of responsibility coupled with foreknowledge.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the poem doesn't let the political successors off the hook either. The pursuit of justice itself becomes a political tool for the next regime, a promise that, according to the poem, is quickly broken.
Precisely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture of systemic failure, the poem shows us that the problem wasn't just the identity of the ruler, perhaps, but the nature of the power structure itself. A new king rose in royal tone. He vowed to heal, then turned to stone.
Turn to stone.
The promises of accountability were, in this narrative, immediately betrayed. The whole investigative process suppressed. The scrolls were sealed, the lies were crowned, and hope was buried underground.
And the poem argues this suppression wasn't passive. It claims the new regime actively targeted the vulnerable instead of the truly responsible parties.
It reads like an inversion of justice, designed maybe to maintain political stability. Instead of going after the negligent officials, the new king called the rioters to the stand and chained the weak with trembling hand. This suggests public anger was redirected, towards internal conflicts rather than focusing on the government's own failings.
And to symbolize the ultimate collapse of the investigative apparatus, the idea that the whole system was corrupted, Nimal delivers that really devastating line about the end of reason itself.
Yeah, the destruction of the very pursuit of truth is symbolized by the fictional detective. Sherlock Holmes was slain and gone, his lamp of reason never shone.
Wow.
And this isn't just a literary flourish, is it? It implies that the government actively dismantled the capacity for logical, honest inquiry. The failure wasn't an accident in this telling. It was a systematic, calculated destruction of the means of achieving justice.
So Nimal uses this next section to sort of tally up the betrayal across multiple administrations. The poem really synthesizes the systemic nature of the deceit by, counting the political failures.
It shows a cycle of leadership that, according to the poem, consistently prioritized self-preservation over accountability. 3 kings had come and 3 had fled.
Three kings.
And they spied, they lied, they hid the scars, and blamed the moon and cursed the stars. The deflection of blame is absolute, isn't it? Painting this picture of institutional culpability where rulers just point fingers at external forces while actively concealing the truth.
And the passage of time only seems to heighten the sense of shame in the poem, emphasizing that the official channels have simply failed to produce any results.
Yeah, we're 6 years on from the event now. 6 winters passed, the snows did melt, yet none confessed what all had felt. The indictment is clear. The cover-up, from Nimal's perspective, has been politically successful, at least for this long. But the poem maintains this kind of revolutionary patience, refusing to let the crisis fade. The Easter flame, still masked in guise, waits for justice to arise.
And this is where we really circle back to that dual function of the ballad we talked about earlier. It's both this magnificent elegy for the dead, and it's a potent political warning for the living.
It's a critical reminder, isn't it, that when memory sleeps, history bleeds again. Nimal clearly understands that if the details he's captured are lost, if the political will to demand truth fails, then the conditions that led to the tragedy could just be repeated.
So the ballad form itself becomes the vehicle.
Exactly. The vehicle for active, collective, insistent memory.
And that final refrain, it shifts the entire burden of justice onto the reader, onto the culture itself, doesn't it? Making sure memory stays active and demanding. The dead still whisper from the plain, "Remember us, don't die in vain." So what does this all mean for us, the audience, and maybe for the relevance of political poetry today?
Well, the poem gives us a structure not just for grieving, but for demanding eternal accountability. It uses the permanence of art to fight the temporary power of politics. If, as Nimal writes, the notes were locked in quarts of gold, forcing the story to sleep, forever cold, then we really have to ask, don't we? What is the responsibility of those outside the quarts of gold, the poets, the artists, you, the citizens, to keep the facts alive through works of art, through memory?
So when the institutional systems, the ones designed to deliver accountability, fail so completely, Nimal shows you that memory, when it's preserved in art, it transforms. It becomes perhaps the only true, lasting form of justice available to a people who've been silenced.